Hey Seekers, and welcome back. I'm your host Julienne Irons, and today we continue our exploration of self-worth and confidence through the scientific lens. Now, many of us think confidence is something you're either born with or you're not. We look at people who seem fearless, charismatic, or self-assured, and assume they possess something we don't. But what if confidence isn't a personality trait at all? What if confidence is actually a skill, something built through evidence, experience, and learning to trust yourself over time? Our guest today is public speaking confidence coach Lilach Mendelovich, who combines neuroscience, performance psychology, and intuitive self-trust to help people cultivate confidence under pressure. In this episode, we explore the science of confidence, why affirmations often fall flat, how our brains learn to believe in our abilities, the difference between self-worth and confidence, and why being yourself is often far more powerful than trying to appear confident. This is Perspective Shifts for Healing with the Hanged Woman, where perspective is power. Let's get into it. So let me guess. You're running a business, showing up, doing all the things, and still second-guessing your next move. That's usually not a sign you need more effort. It's a sign you need clarity. At 3 of Cups Healing, we offer energy and intuitive-based marketing strategy for your small business. We combine tarot insight, competitive research, and real-world strategy to help you understand what makes you stand out, how to communicate it clearly, and what your next move should actually be. So, Seeker, if you're ready to stop second-guessing and start moving with intention, book a free consultation at 3ofcupshealing.com. Your vision, your magic. Let's make it real. Together. That's 3ofcupshealing.com. All right, let's get into the episode. Lilach Mendelovich, I am so grateful that you are going to have this conversation with us. You are one of the smartest people that I know. And I don't say that because you are a good friend of mine. I say that because it's true. And I'm just really grateful to be talking to you about such an important topic for me, because self-confidence and self-worth, as you know, has been something that I have struggled with. And now we get to shift my perspective on it and shift the perspective of our listeners as well. So thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Love it. I love being here. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me. And yeah, excited to talk about all things confidence.
Yes. Okay, so Lilac, for listeners meeting you for the first time, can you share a bit about your work and how you came to focus on confidence from both a scientific and intuitive perspective?
Sure. So I'm a public speaking confidence coach. I focus on public speaking, but confidence is definitely my area of expertise. And we met back in the day because we both started out as actors. And as an actor, I was always fascinated by the people who were so talented in acting classes, but somehow that just didn't translate into them booking work or doing well in auditions. And I was always curious about why that happened. And the more I got into coaching and teaching, I realized there was something about confidence under pressure, that in an acting class, they felt safe. In audition, there was a lot of pressure, and all of a sudden the confidence tanked, and it wasn't equal in both places. And so that's something that I really worked with actors that I was coaching to cultivate when I was an audition coach for over 11 years. And so I had a lot of experience of how to build people's confidence and bring out their best performance under massive pressure. But then I had my own journey of burnout. And when I was coming out of that, I had to kind of build all of my self-trust from scratch, my confidence in my own abilities to just, navigate life and work. And that's when I really got into the neuroscience side of it. And now I combine both my experience in performance confidence and neuroscience aspects to help my clients cultivate their confidence in any spotlight. So it's sort of, I came at it from my professional side and then the personal side and then combining everything together.
Oh, I love that so much. And I'm so excited for this conversation because I definitely suffer from performance anxiety. So
Mhm.
let's break this down.
And most people do, by the way.
Yeah,
There's, I
yeah.
think, speaking, like I'm talking about public speaking, but it's any kind of performance anxiety. There's 70% of the population have it, and 40% have it so intensely that the anxiety is sort of gets in their way or actually impacts their daily life or how they perform, right? There's the certain nerves, they're like, I'm nervous, but I can still do it. And then 40%, it's like the nerves are so bad that it gets in the way. So it's a huge part of the population. It's one of the most common anxiety inducing things is being seen and being kind of in this very visible place. So you're not alone.
I didn't know those stats, and that actually makes me feel
Yeah.
even less alone in it all.
Mhm.
So, wow. Now, when we talk about confidence, what are we actually talking about?
So, obviously, different people might have different definitions, but when I talk about confidence, first of all, it's important to understand that confidence operates like a muscle, which means it's something that you can train and build, but it can also suffer injury and atrophy. So, a lot of people, especially people who struggle with confidence, have a sense of like, oh, I just didn't win that genetic lottery, you
Yeah.
know? I wasn't born with it. Every time I think about it, I think about that old Maybelline commercial that's like, maybe she's born
Maybe
with
it's
it. Maybe
Maybelline.
it's Maybelline.
Yeah.
I always think about that like, well, you're not born with it. Confidence is not something you're born with. Just the people who are really good at it have had more chance to practice. And so it really does operate like a muscle. So you can build and train it. You can it can atrophy from lack of use, or you can suffer an injury to it, like I did when I burnt out. And then I had to sort of do PT, like physical therapy on my confidence, right? So it really just operates in exactly the same way. And in my work, I find that there's sort of three main types of confidence, and obviously they all flow and interact together, but it's like three different avenues that we can come at it from, and they all come down to trust and belief. So the first one would be like the neuroscience or the scientific confidence, which has to do with efficacy, meaning our belief in our own ability to do the thing. Right? When it says like, oh, I'm confident I can do this. That's the kind of confidence we're talking about. And then there's what I call kind of like the outflowing or interpersonal confidence, which is the kind of confidence we think of with performers and speakers. And that has to do more with an energy that you can experience and other people can experience, right? It's like that sort of aura that people have that are very confident and they are kind of magnetic as people. And that kind of confidence is really about a confidence that creates trust and engagement from other people, kind of pulls people towards you. And then you've got your internal or instinctual confidence. And that has to do a lot with just trusting your own judgment and your own instincts. And that has a lot to do with interoception, which is our ability to sense signals from our own body and interpret them and then use that information, like listening to our intuition in a way that helps us be confident about the decisions that we're making so we can be really aligned with what's right for us. And so that's like that thing of like, oh, I know this about myself and I'm confident in that. And that helps me say yes or no to the right things.
How is confidence different from self-worth, and where do they actually overlap?
Right. So they are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, in my opinion, because self worth, the whole thing is that you don't need to do anything to have self worth. Like self worth comes from you are worthy because you are a human that's alive, right? Like you are alive, therefore you're worthy. You don't have to do anything. And confidence, by definition, has to do with action because it's a muscle that gets built. It's something that you have to do in order to cultivate. So it is dependent on action. You can't just be confident just because you are. So they're very opposite in that sense, but they do feed into each other. Now, there is a danger about tying your self-worth to something that you're naturally confident
Oh,
about,
yeah, yeah.
right? So most of us do that,
Hmm.
right? It's like, oh, I have self-worth because I'm good at this and I'm good at this and I'm good at that. And it's like that's you're tying confidence to self-worth when they're really, again, opposite ends of a healthy spectrum. We want both, but they're coming at it from totally different directions. So I do think they feed into each other. Somebody that has self worth is going to have a much easier time cultivating confidence and building that muscle. And where I think they overlap the most is probably that last type of confidence, the interoception one, the self confidence, because in order to trust your own instincts and what's right for you and what doesn't align for you, you have to come in from the belief that you are worthy of a life that fits into your core needs and values just because you're worthy, right? You're worthy of a good, aligned life because you have self worth. And therefore, if something doesn't work for you, even though everybody else says that that's the way to go, you can have trust in your own intuition, instincts, confidence. So I think that's where they line up the most,
Yeah.
but they are very, 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 very different.
This kind of reminded me of something that I'm dealing with now, where I realized, so I've gotten to 100 audiobooks I've narrated, and I've been spending the last year cultivating my skill set because
Mhm.
I realized that like my first 90 books sucked. Like they just weren't very good. And the reason why I could say they sucked is because now that I've been like doing the work to actively get better, I can listen back now and hear why they suck. Right. And so
Mm,
I went sort of down like a little rabbit hole of like, I'm not worthy of doing this. Like, I'm not good enough to
mm.
do this. Like, I should just stop because,
And yet people were paying you money to
right.
do it.
But as,
So they
right.
didn't seem to mind.
That's sort of the thing that I realized, but I didn't realize it in the same way that you're saying it. But I think that's what it was, is I realized I'm still worthy just because I sucked at 90. I didn't suck at all of them, but I sucked at a lot of them. Just because I sucked at a lot of these, narrating a lot of these books, doesn't mean I'm unworthy of continuing my journey of figuring out how to be a good narrator. And now, as I'm working to rebuild my confidence, it is taking those action steps, like listening to audiobooks of other narrators that are much better than I am. And then I've gotten to a habit of just like listening back to everything all the time, so I
Mhm.
can figure it out. So is that kind of what you mean by like the difference between self-worth and self-confidence?
In a way, right? Like the muscle you're building to be like, oh, I'm going to tweak this and adjust that so this gets better and this gets better. You're building your confidence in your ability to be a great narrator by seeing small improvements in the things that you're doing, versus like you wouldn't have gotten more confident by just being,
Right.
right? You
Yeah.
needed to take those steps. But the self-worth is something that's more intrinsic. It's something that's regardless of how well you're doing, you are
Mm,
worthy of growing and learning and doing the thing you want to do.
yeah.
I will get on you about the sucking language.
I know you will. I was like, dang, okay.
Like,
Come at me, bro.
saying that a lot. Obviously, there's like, okay, we don't want to disparage ourselves and all that stuff. But let's talk about the neuroscience of that, which is our brain is taking in a lot of information, and how we define things and what we focus on makes a big difference in the way that we then assume what we are able to do in the future. So even just shifting the language between from I sucked in the past to I was training, I was learning, I was practicing, I was an amateur, and now I'm becoming a pro. That
Mm,
gives us less of I was failing, because sucking is failing. I wasn't failing, I was learning. And when you're learning something, you're new at it and you're going to have better days and worse days. But I was just a trainee, right?
yeah.
So it's sort of the growth mindset and the learning mindset allows for safe failure that's sort of built into the cake, like baked into the cake, in the sense of like, well, every time you're learning something new, you're going to have some, you're not going to do it as well as when you become an expert at it. And then it doesn't feel like a failure because it's sort of assumed as just part of the process versus calling it sucking or failing, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's, yeah, I totally get that. So it took me 90 books to learn to sort of be in school and train and learn how to
Hmm.
be a good narrator. It wasn't that I was sucking before I was in training. I was learning.
Yeah.
I was figuring out, okay, yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, this what you're saying. You were doing the equivalent of like, I tried to run a marathon and I showed up the first day and I didn't run a marathon. It's like you gotta train, or
Yeah.
somebody like a kid sucking at piano when they've only had like 10 lessons. It's like they're not going to be a concert pianist until they really practice. So it's the same. Confidence is exactly like a muscle. It's exactly like learning an instrument. It's very similar to that thing. So if you hadn't felt confident about your narration, it's not necessarily because you sucked. It's just because you were putting in the reps. You were going to the gym, you know?
Yeah. That gives me a sense of relief and not feel so
Mhm.
cringy about myself. So thank you, friend.
There you go. I see, like when we think about, oh, I'm just going to the gym because I'm training for a marathon.
Yeah.
Now, when I have bad days, I'm not looking at myself as a failure. I'm just like, well, that's the price of training. Some days you're going to like not really get it, you
Yeah.
know?
Wow. I love that so much. Ooh.
And it's not just a feel good thing to tell yourself you were training versus you were failing. It's also being smart and working smarter, not harder, because it will help your brain feel like you're more capable. So you're actually working with your neuroscience rather than against it. So there's like scientific evidence to changing the framing and reframing that kind of failure versus learning.
Yeah, because even in the reframe we just made, I feel a weight off my back. Like I feel
Mhm.
better. I feel lighter.
Yeah. It feels better. And then it's also like, there's scientific proof that it's going to help you. Sometimes people resist the feel good stuff. It's like, oh, it just feels good, but it's not going to do anything. This
Ah,
is both, it feels good and there's proof that it's actually going to help you get to your goal better and faster.
that's so cool.
Mhm.
That's really dope. I love our brains.
I do too.
Yours are
They're
so
fascinating.
cool.
Yeah.
Now, we talked a bit about confidence as efficacy, which is proving to your brain that you can do something. Can you break that down for us a little bit more?
Yes. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about in this section is coming from Ian Robertson's book, How Confidence Works. He just put together a lot of research around the biology, the neuroscience, the physiology of confidence. And so it's kind of like the science aspect. And how it affects our bodies. And he defined confidence as the belief that you can do something, and that if you can do it, the outcome that you want will be more likely to happen. He shortens it to can do, could happen. It doesn't mean that the thing is guaranteed to happen, right? It's not like, oh, if I train for the marathon, I'm guaranteed to run it in X amount of time. It's more that I could run it in that amount of time, or I could complete the marathon. It's I can do it, I can train, and then I could run the marathon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be a guarantee, but it's can do, could happen. That is the scientific kind of definition of confidence. And it also becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when you feel confident about your ability to do something, your brain treats it as a success that you've already achieved. What I mean by that is like really think about something that you feel confident about your ability to do it. You've done a bunch of podcasts. You know you're a good podcast interviewer. When you were about to interview me on this podcast, you probably felt like, "Oh, I know this is going to go well because my podcast last week went well and the podcast before that went well." You already assumed success,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody has things that they know that they can do.
Mm.
Even if it's something as simple as like, oh, I make a really good omelet. So I just assume that when I make an omelet tomorrow, it's going to be delicious. You have
Yeah.
confidence in that. So the brain assumes success before you've done the thing because it's confident about it. And that lowers your anxiety and raises your mood. And it also makes you more likely to take the action, right? To start something, to continue something that's working. The crazy part that they found in the research is it makes you more persuasive
Oh.
to other people, especially when it's something that you're communicating to others. If you're talking about podcasting, making the omelet, whatever it is that you're confident about, it makes you a lot more persuasive to others. So that's where it ties in a little bit to that interpersonal confidence that we'll get to later. That is sort of the efficacy side, is the more we feel like we can do the thing and what we want could happen, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, and it just keeps spiraling upwards in a really good way. Now, anxiety and confidence are sort of opposite sides of the seesaw.
Mm-hmm.
The more you have of one, the less you have of the other. So if you have more anxiety, you'll automatically have less confidence. And the more you have confidence, the less you'll have anxiety.
Ah, yes.
About that particular
About that
thing. When we're
particular
talking
thing, yeah.
about this is the kind of confidence we're talking about, your ability to do a thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where confidence comes from, taking action. And when we take the action and then we see a positive result, we get some sort of win, even if it's a small one. That's where the confidence gets built. So if we take an action towards a goal that we have and we do it in a progressive way, like small steps towards a goal, that way we can build up our confidence and put our brain into a state where the future success is more likely. So what I said earlier about you're actually making your goal easier to achieve, this is the science behind why.
So why does our brain need that kind of proof before it starts to believe that something is possible for us?
There's two reasons. Number one is your brain's number one job is to keep you alive. It just wants you to survive, and it loves sticking to what it already knows has worked, especially if it's helped you survive in the past. It doesn't care if that felt good to you or if it made you happy. It only cares that you are still alive. So if you're somebody who hasn't had confidence about a thing or in general before, confidence is not a priority to the brain because it's not the thing that made you survive in the past. So we're not prioritizing that. So it won't just happen by itself unless you prove to the brain that, hey, there's a better way, a nicer way, a more like sustainable way for us to survive, right? If you could say like, oh, this confidence thing that will get us where we want to go, it will help us survive, but it will just feel better. But the brain needs proof of that because it's not going to try something new without any sort of guarantee that you're not going to put yourself in an unsafe situation.
Right.
And number two is that the brain is also kind of a predictive machine. So it works off of past experiences and probabilities, and it then anticipates what's going to happen next. So it won't anticipate you being confident about the thing unless it has some proof to add into its algorithm in a way, right? So this is a big reason why for some people, like positive affirmations don't work or feel a little bit like gaslighting.
Yeah.
Because if you're telling your brain something that it doesn't already believe, right? It immediately puts a red flag on that. It flags that it's false. And then it feels like it doesn't make you feel more confident. It makes you feel like a fraud because there's internal tension between your brain's like, but that's not true. I can't believe it.
That's how I am with positive affirmations for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 90% of people, unless the positive affirmation is very close to something you're already experiencing, right?
Yeah. Like I am loved, right?
Right.
Like, yeah.
Unless you have proof that that thing is true.
Right.
So this is how you can use that knowledge that that's how the brain works by giving it proof and focusing its attention on small positive things that show that the thing you wanted to believe is true. Because it can't take your entire life experience into consideration at every point. There's way too much that we experience. So the brain, that's where attention comes in. It focuses on the experiences that stand out. And so we can direct the brain's focus and attention to things that it's dismissed before, right? If you say, maybe you've never spoken in front of a group of 100 people on a stage before, but you could say, well, I have spoken in front of 5 people before and I did really well. So it might have been dismissed by the brain before because it was focusing on the fact, well, I haven't done 100 people. So you can say, well, I've done this and I've done this. I've taken steps. There's little wins in this column that are connected enough to give the brain the proof to say, yeah, maybe we can do this. So it's either proof of the things that actually are exactly the same as the thing you want to be confident about, but it could also be things that are connected or a smaller version of that thing. So you're building your belief on something the brain can observe as true. You're giving it the little proof points. And
Yeah.
the proof changes the prediction because you're adding new input into the algorithm. There's plenty of people that this is like imposter syndrome, right? Where you do have experiences that should make you confident, but the brain is focusing on the negative experiences instead. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't know about your positive ones, it's just not paying attention to them. And you can consciously turn the brain's attention to the positive ones to build that confidence. So if it can believe it, it can predict it. And then the confidence becomes sort of self-sustaining because we're in that upward spiral.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So attention is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
You have to have attention on the right things, right? You need to take some sort of action because again, the brain won't believe you unless it sees some sort of proof. And if we're just sitting there thinking it's not really going to have the same impact. And then we need to have a different attitude towards failure, which is exactly what we talked about earlier with the
Yep.
sucking. It's about like seeing
I'm
it as a
learning.
learning experience. And then also the attitude towards ourselves. A, knowing that neuroplasticity is possible for our whole
Yeah.
life. So our brains can change and we can change how we think and feel. And also self compassion, because if we start attacking ourselves or shaming ourselves or blaming ourselves for not being as far along as we want to be with something, it's only going to shut you down further versus self compassion accelerates the confidence building.
Ah. You're like clicking so many things into place for me right now with like other VO things that I'm trying to implement in my life. I know I'm really good at being directed for like a full cast audiobook. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
really good at being directed. Like one of the books just was released and I got some really good reviews on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to break into animation
Mm-hmm.
now. And it's like using the fact that I know I'm good at being directed for these book series. I can also be really good at animation. It's
Mm-hmm.
a different medium, but I can be good at that.
Right, right. Okay, so let's use your example as how other people can use this information to build some of that confidence for them and that evidence. So every time you challenge an old prediction in your predictive brain, you're giving the brain new data and you're changing the prediction, right? So if the prediction before was like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do the animation," by turning the brain's attention to the proof that you're good with the audiobooks in a very similar situation, you're giving you data to the to that algorithm, right?
Yeah.
A way I like to think about it is almost like your predictive brain is a little bit like a very advanced magic 8 ball. Like it does a lot of calculation in there, but at the end of the day, when you shake the magic 8 ball, it can only give you answers that it has proof for.
Mm,
So if all of your experiences that it's taking into consideration are I can't do the thing, and
mhm,
only one experience where you could do the thing, the likelihood of you shaking the magic 8 ball and getting a yes, I can do this is low. But
mhm.
by creating new experiences and challenging the old predictions, showing proof that the thing is possible, it's like you're adding a new yes to the magic 8 ball and taking away a no. And so every time you do that, now the likelihood is like 20% you'll get a yes, and then 30% you'll get a yes, right? So that if you keep building this muscle and keep showing proof to your brain, by the end, when you shake the magic 8 ball, you're practically guaranteed to get yes, you can.
I love that so much. So that is one way that we can start building evidence in our everyday lives. Are there other ways that we can do this?
So this is all connected, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what's something that's like really, really, really important is making sure that you collect your little wins or your little proof points in baby steps. So it's very easy for somebody to say, I want to be confident in this. I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone. I'm going to try the thing. And then, but the thing is, if you go for a big swing and you fail, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be very difficult to, this is kind of like the injury to the confidence. If we take a very
Ah.
big swing, especially if the stakes are really high.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you can actually do more damage than good. So the way to build this confidence muscle is the same exact way that you would build a muscle in the gym. You do a little more every time, right? You progressively strengthen the muscle. So Ian Robertson in his book says, pick a goal and then do a step that is 90% achievable. So you are almost guaranteed to have a win, right? So you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, but only by a tiny little bit, right? What is 90% achievable? There's one version is showing it proof from the past, pointing out to your brain, oh, there's this time that I did this and this time that I did this. So that's the attention part. And then there's actually taking steps and taking action right now, but making sure that they are 90% achievable so that you're almost guaranteed wins and you experience that success. And then that's more evidence for your brain. There's attention and then there's action. You could go from both directions, but you just don't want to set yourself up to struggle. You want to set yourself up for success, especially if this is something that you're really struggling with. If you're already kind of like 80% confident, you could take slightly larger swings. But if this is something you're really struggling with, you want to go for what is 90% achievable.
So, Lilac, you talk about confidence being built through experience, especially in performance or real life situations. What does that actually look like?
Okay, so this is that kind of confidence that has to do a little bit more with something that's coming from inside out, right? That we experience interpersonally. This is the energy that we say like, oh, that person's so confident, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being confident at an action or a skill or a thing, right? It's just the aura of confidence. So when we talk about this kind of confidence, it really breaks down to, and this is just my personal experience in all my years of working with people on this, is about being present, connected, and yourself. So those are kind of the elements that go into everybody. Every confident person has these elements, right? It's, again, not something you're born with. Other people just had more practice. And because those are the elements that really go into that kind of confidence, the things that get in the way tend to be anxiety or nerves, perfection, and either being fake, being inauthentic, or feeling like being yourself is not going to get you where you want to go, right? So sometimes people are very consciously putting on something, right? And being kind of fake and inauthentic. But a lot of times it's subconscious, and it's just because this is again, coming back to the confidence and self-worth in a sense of we don't think we're good enough the way that we are, or that the way that we are is going to be a problem, is not going to seem credible enough or powerful enough or confident enough. And so then we feel like we have to change ourselves or fit ourselves into a different mold in order to be quote unquote confident. And so that actually has an adverse effect, especially in today's world more than ever because of AI. There's a little bit of a pushback at things feeling like a little too perfect, a little too robotic, a little too polished, because everybody's like, did you write this or did AI? Or did you do the script for this talk or did AI do it?
Right. Yeah.
And people are really kind of like not loving feeling like they're being tricked into
Right.
something that's AI. What I mean is like, if you know that it's AI and it's fine, and we all know that AI is everywhere, but if you're going to do like an article or a talk or something, and you're presenting these ideas as your own and your own unique perspective, people don't like to feel like, but I don't, it feels a little AI. Like it kind of feels, so I don't know if you actually have these expertise or that these are actually your original thoughts, right? And I'm not saying not to use AI at all. I use it as a focus group for a lot of my stuff. If I have something, I'm just like, which way is going to resonate more, this way or this way? But then I gave it the input, and it's always my words. It just helps me choose which way I want to go about it. But so it's not about that. But I do believe that, especially people who are experts in their field or people who are looking to create trust because they're trying to get a job, trying to get clients, trying to convince people to take a certain action. Anybody that's trying to build trust has to find a way to be visible in a way that AI can't replicate, which is why I really lean into public speaking, because AI might be able to write the script for you, but it can't perform it.
Yeah.
And people kind of need to see you now because the written word can be really manipulated by AI. And so you being able to speak through your expertise creates so much more trust. So it's not about not using AI, it's just about knowing where it erodes trust and where it can be a tool that helps you.
So you mentioned three elements here. You mentioned managing your nerves, prioritizing connection, and giving yourself permission to be yourself. Can you walk us through those?
I could talk forever about all of these things. So the anxiety and the nerves, that's one thing that keeps you from feeling confident and being confident. And there's a big mistake that happens around nerves specifically, where we try to shut them down, get rid of them, not feel them. That's why I like to say managing your nerves or befriending your nerves, because we're not actually getting rid of them. The most confident people that you know, they are not nerves less, right? It's not like they never get nervous. They just operate with the nerves. It's sort of like it's something that they integrate, and they see some of the nerves as excitement. There's a sense of, just because I have butterflies in my stomach doesn't mean that I can't rock this talk or rock this presentation, right? It sort of separates the physiological feeling of the nerves from your confidence. And so you actually don't need to shut it down. You can just befriend them. What I mean by befriend them is, you want to think about your nerves as, or your anxiety as, like a child having a tantrum, right? It's only nervous because it's, again, trying to keep you safe, trying to protect you, trying to keep you alive. And the fear of negative evaluation from our peers, the fear of getting kicked out of the tribe, is hardwired into our brains. And that's why 70% of people get nervous about public speaking or about being in front of people in the first place, being visible enough to be judged harshly. So that's why it's so, so, so common. And so there's a real thing in there. There's a real fear that this is an unsafe activity. And instead of telling the scared toddler, just shut up and get with the program.
Leave me alone. I'm always like, leave me
How many times
alone.
has that worked? Like, when has that ever worked that it will actually make things better?
Right.
Generally, if you try to ignore a toddler or shut them down, they'll just get louder, especially if they're having a tantrum, right? So what we need to do is sort of befriend them. We need to have a little self-compassion. We need to soothe them the way that you would a child and say, hey, I know this is scary and this is might feel unsafe, but here are all the reasons why it is, and we can actually do this, and you don't have to go away. You can just sit here and we'll be doing this together. The way I talk to my clients is about thinking about it like a car. So when you are having an anxiety spiral before you need to present something, for example, it's like the nerves, that little toddler having a tantrum, it like took over the driver's seat and it is steering us, like it's just going. And you're stuck trying to yell at it to stop.
Yeah.
So what we want to do, instead of kicking the toddler out of the car, because then it will just fight harder. It will just reach for the wheel and it won't let go. But if instead you soothe it and you say, it's okay, you don't have to leave. We just have to put you in the back seat and fasten you into the seat belt, because that's the way that we're going to get there safely. And then you, the conscious adult, gets to drive the car, right?
Right.
It can be there in the background. It can keep crying even, but you don't need it to steer you astray, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to drive the car. And so that's a way to think about befriending your nerves, is way more effective. Neuroscience wise and both psychologically, in feeling in control and feeling like you can still do the thing instead of trying to fight the nerves. I'm going to give your audience, I have a guide. It's called From Panic to Presence, and it's the 3 mistakes fueling your public speaking nerves and the neuroscience hacks that flip the script. And so a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about for this section is in there, and that way I don't have to get into all the nitty gritty and they can just have it. But that's one of the mistakes, is trying to shut down or eliminate the nerves.
Okay.
Because I guarantee you that every person that is a very confident person that you think, they don't eliminate their nerves, they just roll with them.
Roll with it. Right? Yeah.
And then the second thing is focusing on connection. Prioritizing connection is so important because that's what builds the trust. We think about, especially in business or in sales, they talk about the know, like, and trust factor. Perfection, which is something that we all have a tendency towards, right? We want to be like, oh, I'll be confident if this is really great and if this is perfect. But this is the bad news for all of us perfectionists, is that perfection blocks connection. It's actually in the know, like, and trust factor. I like to say that perfection is a like and trust cock blocker. It will just get in there and be like, oops, no. because you can know somebody who's has that perfectionist tendencies, but again, when things are too perfect, we just talked about it with AI, it creates a distance because real connection can only happen imperfect human to imperfect human. It's relatable. It's something that we can see ourselves in the other person. We feel connected to them. That creates trust. That creates the fact that we like them. And so when things are too perfect, there's a part of your brain that knows that humans are not perfect. Nature is not perfect. Perfection is sort of antithetical to what's natural. And so, just like the brain has the red flag when you're telling it an affirmation that it can't believe, when it sees something that feels too perfect, there's that red flag goes up again. And it creates that distance from your audience. So, if you're trying to focus on connection rather than perfection, you'll actually be way more impactful, way more engaging. You'll get the trust and the like that you want, right? And also, it just really helps us psychologically with our confidence because the fact that you don't need to be perfect, that if something goes wrong, then you can turn it into an opportunity for connection, right? If you have tech issues and you're like, oh man, tech, everybody can relate to that, right? That could be an opportunity to be like, oh, we're all human here. We all have tech problems.
Yeah.
Is Mercury in retrograde? Everybody laughs, right? There
Right.
you go. And all of a sudden, all the tension is dispelled, and we actually feel more connected to the person, even though they had a hiccup in their talk or their presentation. I'm obviously gearing this towards public speaking because that's where I talk about this stuff a lot, but it applies to anything. It applies to one-on-one conversations, it applies to dating, it applies to all of those things, right? It applies to any kind of place where you want to have confidence interpersonally. So, really focusing on connection rather than perfection is going to make you more confident, but it also is going to make it easier to not see little hiccups as failures. They're actually opportunities. And then we have the final one, which is the permission to be yourself. We kind of talked about how that connects to that like AI perfectionist thing. But also, if you think about the times in your life where you feel the best, the most yourself, your best self, right? There's certain things that are unique to you that come out and help you feel that way. And if you do a performative confidence, meaning you're trying to kind of pretend to be confident or you like mirror somebody else's version of confidence, there is going to be again that red flag in your brain of there's something inauthentic, there's something fake, there's something not quite true here. It doesn't mean that the whole fake it till you make it, you could do that. I'm not saying that it doesn't work at all, but you'll always be your most confident and most impactful, most engaging, most magnetic when you are yourself, when you lean into your natural tendencies, when you're able to not second guess every little thing that you do because you are kind of in your natural flow. So it doesn't mean that we don't make adjustments. An example I give sometimes is like, oh, I talk with my hands. And if I'm doing a recorded thing, I need to make sure that my hands are not in front of my face all the time. But I'm not going to stop talking with my hands and force myself to have them down the whole time because that will feel very fake, forced, and authentic for me. And it will impact my entire confidence because it will be taking brain space away from focusing on the person and the connection. And it will be focused on keeping my natural tendencies at bay. So it just frees up all this room when you can work with your natural tendencies. So me saying, oh, I'll just make sure that when I have my hand gestures, they're below my shoulders and I don't interrupt, they're not in front of my face. That's a very easy adjustment. And that takes way less brain space than forcing my arms down and to stay down, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. 100% understand that.
Yeah. So that's just like a very simple example, but it goes to everything, right? I have a client that she has a tendency to look around a lot and she was feeling like that will make her seem like she's not paying attention to the people that she's talking to or that she's flighty or distracted, right? But she's an intuition coach, right? Like her whole thing, she works in the quantum field. She is sort of an intuitive person. That's her whole thing is like she gets downloads and she channels and she does all these things. And after we talked about it, she was like, oh, it's not that I'm distracted. I'm just absorbing information from the
Yeah.
environment. And so she had been spending so much time and so much anxiety trying to stop looking around, trying to just keep eye contact and stay focused. And it was taking up so much of her brain power. She couldn't concentrate, she couldn't connect, and she just felt so anxious and like a failure about it. When we said, okay, well, let's just reframe this whole thing. Let's lean into your natural tendencies. You just communicate with your audience that when you're looking around, it's not that you're not paying attention to them, it's that you are absorbing your intuitive cues from the environment so that you can let them know what downloads and intuitions you're getting. And that's what people go to her for.
Oh,
So there's no problem with it as long as people
yeah.
understand that that's what's happening. So all it required for her to be herself is A, to give herself permission and realize it's not a problem, but also just communicate it so everybody's on the same page. And when we started working that way, it actually allowed her for a lot more connection because she wasn't so focused on the fact she was looking around. So it's both a permission to just be yourself, and when you're yourself, you're your most confident, but also it's the neuroscience of the amount of brain power, actual energy that is being taken away from connection and into controlling things that you naturally do. And if we can just give ourselves that permission, then all of our brain power can be focused on where we want it to be focused.
I love that so much. That just freed something up in me, even in having this conversation with you, because there's a part of my brain that was like, you have to understand everything she's saying all the time. And it was making me feel not smart, because sometimes I was like, wait, what? Because sometimes I have to like go back and listen to like the edit, because it's a different brain that's working when I'm sitting here having this conversation with you than when I'm like actually listening to the episode. And when
Right.
I listen to the episode, I was like, oh, I understand more, I get more downloads. And there's a part of my brain that was like, you have to understand and grasp everything she's saying right now, or else you're failing. But what you're saying is like, I don't, because that actually doesn't come naturally to me. What comes naturally to me is like picking up on, obviously, like listening to you and having this conversation, but also just like picking up on the things that intuitively I get hit on from the things that you're saying. I don't have to grasp everything right now,
You don't.
because that's just not the way my brain works.
Totally. And a lot of other people would relate to that. So you just calling it out right now, you're creating more connection with your audience. Like, oh, I'm like that too. I have to listen to things a couple of times, or I have to go back to my notes, or things like that. I have that too. But once you just say, oh, that's just how my brain works, and that's how I work best, that's what makes me most confident. Like, I'm getting certified in applied neuroscience right now, and I know that I can listen to the thing the first time, and then I do what I call like deep reading, which I go back to the notes, and then I give myself space to go deep into almost journaling around the lessons, right? And I know that that's where I absorb the most information. I also know I'm more visual than auditory, so I really need to see the information. That's why I need a transcript. Sometimes it's easier for me than just listening to an audio. But once I understand that about myself, then I'm very confident in my ability to learn the things very deeply, because I know what works for me and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're leaning into your natural tendencies. That makes you more confident, because now we're not blaming ourselves and thinking that what we're doing is not good enough. We're just finding our way of doing it. And that has to do also with more the energy of confidence, right? Like, you don't need a ton of bravado. You don't need to be loud and like funny and high energy. If you're an introvert, or if you're kind of like a more mellow person, you can be just as confident by leaning into things that make you you, because some people will love that energy, will love the slightly softer, slightly more calm energy, and it's still very confident, will still draw people to you, and it will draw the people that are right for you.
Yeah. Oh, how freeing.
So part of confidence is just giving yourself permission to lean into the things that make you you, instead of trying to perform somebody else's version of confidence.
Oh, God, that's so empowering. Yeah. Okay, Seekers, I think this is a really great place to take a break. We'll be right back with the episode. Grief doesn't move in a straight line, and it doesn't come with a clear path forward either. Seekers, if you've experienced loss, whether it's a loved one, a pet, miscarriage, or another life transition, Healing After Loss was created to support you through it in a real and grounded way. Led by trauma-informed intuitive energy healer Julienne Irons, this self-paced course gives you space to process your emotions, understand what you're moving through, and find your own path forward with tools, reflection, and optional life support along the way. And because you're listening to The Hanged Woman, you can receive 10% off with code The Hanged Woman. Remember joy again. and learn more at threeofcupshealing.com/HAL course. That's threeofcupshealing.com/HAL course. And the code for 10% off is The Hanged Woman. Hey, Seeker. So if your marketing feels unclear or inconsistent, it's usually not because you're doing it wrong. It's because it's not fully aligned yet. At Three of Cups Healing, we use energy and intuitive-based marketing strategy to help you get clear on your messaging, your audience, and how to show up in a way that actually works for you. That means less second-guessing, more direction, and a business that feels like it fits. So, Seeker, if you're ready to stop second-guessing and start moving with intention, book a free consultation at threeofcupshealing.com. Your vision, your magic. Let's make it real. Together. That's threeofcupshealing.com. All right, let's keep the perspective shift going.
Look, we've had a lot of conversations about anxiety, okay? Nerves and anxiety. You and I have talked about it, okay? So for people like me who sometimes feel very overwhelmed by nerves or anxiety, how do we begin to work with our nervous system instead of against it? How do we begin to have those moments where we're like, okay, I can befriend these nerves, I can befriend this anxiety?
Great question. So number one is to assess like where you are on the spectrum. If we're having just like a little butterflies in the stomach, a little bit of nerves, or are we in full fight or flight survival mode? Because if we're in full fight or flight survival mode, that's when the toddler is having a tantrum and we cannot reason with it. And so the first thing we have to do if we're there is to regulate our nervous system. We can't have a real conversation with ourselves or even give ourselves real self-compassion before the brain is out of survival mode. And the only way the brain and body are connected. And so when the brain is in survival mode and it won't listen to reason, the way to regulate it is through the body. So we have breathing exercises. There's certain physical things that you can do. There are like progressive muscle relaxation exercises. There's a ton of exercises that are very fast and very effective to downregulate your nervous system to the point where the nerves are not going to go away, but we're just at the point that we can then have this conversation, that conversation about like, oh, look at all these proof points that I can do the thing, or giving self-compassion to that part of yourself and putting in the back seat. All that stuff can't happen until the nervous system is regulated. And in that guide that I'm giving your listeners, there's a ton of very detailed exercises to regulate your nervous system. So that way they can go and try it out and test out what works for you, because every body is different. I always give my clients like 5 different breathing exercises and I tell them to experiment and see which one actually makes you feel calmer. Because depending on your lung capacity, depending just like on your physical health, depending on your size, different exercises are going to be better for different people. So I always give people a ton of tools and I say, go experiment, see what works for you. And then once we've regulated the nervous system, which is number one, nothing else can happen until that happens. That's when we can start doing what is the smallest, safest version of this challenge that I can do. What is the smallest, safest step so that I can start proving to myself that I can do this? Because once you start that upward spiral, once you start showing like, oh, I can, and then I can do the next step and the next step, and you're building that confidence. But you have to start with something that feels what is the smallest, safest version of this thing.
I love that because it's like, I don't gotta jump all into the deep end of the pool. I could dip my toe in.
If you're really dealing with anxiety, right? Like if you're somebody who's got a lot of nerves, a lot of anxiety, phobias, things like that, you shouldn't jump into the deep end of the pool right away, because you will create injury to that confidence muscle. It's almost like trying to run a marathon without ever training, right? You will get injured. So you want to train progressively, small steps, build the muscle, build the confidence, right? slowly but surely, and then you'll be able to do the thing. And it doesn't take that long, but we need to start small. And then once you feel a certain level of confidence, what's another 10% from there? What's another 10% from there, right? You don't stay at 90% of your initial capacity.
Yeah. It reminds me of like that old masculine saying of like, gotta take the bull by the horns, but that's like, that doesn't actually serve us.
It's different. Again, if you're somebody who's feeling like, oh, I'm 80% confident about this thing, but I really need to challenge myself to go to my comfort zone to do the thing bigger, that's something that you can do at that point. But if you're somebody that really struggles with anxiety, you want to start small so you can build to that 80% before you make a really big leap. Going out of your comfort zone, you have to do it in a safe way. Otherwise, your whole system will go into fight or flight and shut down, and then not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
You have to show your brain that it's safe to take those risks
Yeah.
by proving to it that you can actually do the thing, which is where that 90% achievable goal comes from.
Now, this is another thing that I've dealt with for a really long time. We've had many conversations about comparison or measuring ourselves against others, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how does that actually interfere with building real confidence?
It does a ton, and we're going to get all into it. But I'm going to say something slightly controversial, which there's also like a slightly good side to comparison. In my work especially with public speakers and people who struggle with public speaking, anybody that lacks confidence or lacks practice in a certain field has a really big tendency to vastly underestimate what it takes for people who are good at the thing to be successful. So you actually helped me with something like this. So I have a client that started a podcast, and she was just struggling with getting the first 16-minute episode, and she was trying to do it all in one take. And I told her, I was like, oh, my friend, she's a professional audiobook narrator. She doesn't do an entire chapter in one take. She does it one line, one paragraph at a time. And that blew her mind, right? She's been spending days trying to get a perfect take of a 16-minute episode.
Wow. Yeah.
But that was because her expectation wasn't realistic. She thought the pros do it this way. I have to do it this way. Otherwise, I'm not doing it right. When really, if you compare yourself and the way that you're doing things to the way that the professionals are doing things, 99% of the time, they are putting in way more work and way more reps than you realize, right? It's not just like, turn on the microphone, say the thing, boom, it's done. So when I told her about your experience and how you record your audiobooks, it gave her so much relief, and it really helped her do it in a much more effective way. So there is a plus side to comparison, because when we're in our own world alone and we don't realize that the people who are really good at the thing actually have to put in a ton of work and a lot of time and effort and reps to get good at the thing, we just feel like we're the failure.
90 bucks? 90 bucks?
$9. But then we think the problem is us, right? We're a failure. We can't do it the way that other people do it. When that's not actually the way they do it. So
Right.
Realistic expectations are super important to confidence. And that can only happen if we do understand what other people are doing to get to the level that we want to get to. So there's healthy comparison in that sense, right? It's more about the steps that the people take. I'm comparing myself. Am I actually taking all the steps, or did I try to leapfrog over all the steps and expect myself to get to the finish line just as well, right?
Right.
So that's the kind of good comparison. The negative comparison is really about feeling like not the steps, but the goals. Did I achieve the same way that this person has achieved? And comparing our experience, our outcomes, our lifestyle, everything about us to how other people are doing. So that kind of comparison is a huge source of stress for your brain, because again, the fear of negative evaluation, rejection by the group, all that stuff, that is some of the greatest triggers of like cortisol secretion. So it really creates a ton of stress and a ton of fight or flight for us. It's hardwired into our brains to see that negative evaluation of ourselves or from others as something that is life-threatening. So that kind of comparison creates this constant feeling of not measuring up, constant feeling of failure by comparison. You can always find someone that's like stronger, richer, hotter than you, even if you achieve the thing that you said you wanted to achieve. There's always going to be somebody who did it faster, better, stronger, right?
Always.
So it's not only that it's something that is bad for you, both for your psychology, but also physically, it also is a losing game. You are setting yourself up to be miserable. It's a natural tendency to compare, but there's a way to overcome that. And that's by focusing on your internal intrinsic goals rather than external goals. So external goals are things like money, fame, power, shit you get to show off on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we don't want those things, but they're just not the priority when you have intrinsic goals. Intrinsic goals and internal goals are connected to your core values. And if you prioritize those goals to help you live in alignment with your values, then it's not something that you can really compete with other people because it's just you against yourself, right? Comparison no longer carries that kind of weight because that's no longer the priority. So I can give you an example for myself when I was going through coming out of the burnout, for example. When I was starting a new business with the public speaking coaching, I had a lot of pressure to make the money, build the thing, do it fast, do it effectively, be good at the thing, get a bunch of clients. There was a lot of pressure, both because, you need money to live, but also a little bit of like wanting to be successful and all that kind of stuff. But when I was coming out of burnout, I changed my goal to building a business that feels good in my body and doesn't burn me out. I still wanted to build a business, but now instead of focusing on like XK a month, the goal is like, how do I build a sustainable business that doesn't burn me out? The only person that can answer that question is me because it's an internal goal and an internal feeling. There's no comparison to somebody else because what burns me out doesn't burn another person out, right? So comparison loses all its power because it's not about that. And that intrinsic goal helps me when I get into comparison mode with other people. It's like, oh, they started a business at the same time that I did, and they're already making this much, right? But then I go back to, oh, but that wasn't my goal. My goal was to build a sustainable business that doesn't burn me out. And if that's my goal, then I'm actually doing really well.
Yeah.
So it helps take away the power of comparison when you have those internal goals. And your values really help in boosting your confidence because it anchors your sense of self to something like bigger and more eternal than money, fame, power. There are things that you can gain and lose very quickly. So it makes your sense of self feel less under threat when you don't get the thing that you want. When we're aware and we're connected to our values and what we stand for, we can be a lot more resilient in the face of criticism, in the face of failure, in the face of comparison, because it's like an antidote to the negative evaluation of others. It's an antidote to that anxiety because, again, just because I didn't grow my business as fast as the other person on Instagram, if that's not my goal, it takes away the power. The goal is intrinsic. That was my example, but everybody can have their own. Just think about connecting your goals to your values really helps with that whole comparison thing. Your brain's going to go there. My brain still goes there, but then you have something to combat it with. You have something to say, oh, but that's not our goal, actually.
Yeah, and it takes the pressure off.
And helps your confidence because you're like, oh, right, but if this is my goal, then I'm actually doing pretty well. And I'm like feeding that positive spiral, right?
Yeah. So when we start to move away from external validation and we begin to build confidence from within, what shifts in us?
I don't think we can ever be immune to external validation, right? That I think the goal is to move from needing it to just wanting it or just enjoying it. So
Yeah.
it's going from a must have to a fun to have, right? Because we all enjoy some external validation, but that's again those realistic expectations. Don't expect yourself to do something that's against human nature. We all crave external validation, but it is a realistic expectation to try to turn into something that's a nice to have instead of a must have. So that way you're setting yourself up for success. And then to answer the actual question, um, I think, well, I mean, you can answer and the listeners can answer for themselves. If you were able to really measure your success and your confidence and how well you can do the thing by whether you're just living in alignment with what's really important to you and the values and the core beliefs that you have,
Mm.
what would it create for you?
I think that I've been feeling a lot of that lately,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been creating more ease and
Mm-hmm.
less anxiety. Like I used to wake up with a lot of morning anxiety, and while she's still there, she's not as prevalent as she was before,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I have a lot more, the word quiet is
Yes.
coming to
Ease,
me.
quiet,
Hmm.
peace.
Peace, yeah.
Yeah. And then on the other side of that coin is resilience.
Yeah,
Because listen, the world's a lot right now, and it
a
is
lot.
always going to be a lot. Life is lifing, like the world's falling apart. But real resilience comes from the confidence that whatever happens, I am able to figure it out. I can do the thing, right?
Yeah,
I can figure it out. I am going to be able to pick myself up and learn some new skills, learn some new tools, and figure out my next step. So if you have that confidence, then you have the peace and then you have the resilience.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I see both of those things, or I see all of that happening in my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
It makes so much sense. You've also spoke about intuitive confidence and introspection. Can you explain what that means?
So, interoception is your ability to hear your signals and cues from your body and interpret them. So, a lot of people don't have interoception or like struggle with interoception, especially if we are not used to like tuning in with our bodies. But it could be something as simple as like, I need to go to the bathroom, just feeling your bladder is full and you need to go pee.
Yeah.
Or I'm thirsty, I need to drink some water. Like those are kind of the more obvious interoception things. But then there's also the kind of intuitive, the pit in your stomach, the kind of strain in your chest, the something that feels that's not a physical manifestation, but more of an emotional one, that your body is trying to give you some sort of signal. And your body's talking to you in the only way it knows how, which is through physical cues and signals. We have to be able to notice it. That's the first step. And then you need to be able to then understand what it means and then assimilate that knowledge into how you move forward. So that would be kind of the definition of that kind of interception. And the confidence that it gives you is knowing when you have a dilemma or where you don't know which way to go or what a choice to make, it really helps you make the choice that's right for you. But also understanding the difference between discomfort that comes out of just growth, the growing pains, or discomfort that comes out of like, oh, I don't want to do the thing because that's a little scary, versus the kind of discomfort that comes from misalignment or something is not right for you or when something is dangerous for you. I like to think about like if you're again working out because everything is a muscle, the difference between a stretch or a workout that like you can feel the pain but it's good pain. It's like the kind of pain that's like, oh, this pain means I'm getting stronger, versus an injury pain. We have that interception when we're working out, but the key to intuitive confidence or internal confidence is learning how to have that kind of tuning in and understanding of more subtle cues from the body.
So, how does learning to sense and understand what's happening inside the body help us trust ourselves more?
It kind of talked about, but let me give you an example, which I think will illustrate it. So this is something that happened to me when I was, building my business. I joined LinkedIn for the first time because, that's where the new people were. Actors are not on LinkedIn, so I was never on there before. So I had to start this whole new social media thing. So in order to start it, I took this LinkedIn challenge with this LinkedIn coach. And the first day we created our profile. And the second day we created some content. And the last day was about DMs and marketing on LinkedIn. And I had some resistance to some of it because it's like, oh, the perfectionism was coming up about like my profile being perfect. And, I was kind of working through my own resistance and feeling the perfectionism and trying to work through it in the other days, but I did it. So I, I could tell the difference that was something that I can do and it's still aligned. Then the last day was about DMing people and marketing yourself through that. And there were kind of levels of that interoception that were happening for me. First of all, she showed an example of quote unquote what not to do, which was just those very super bro marketing, like really aggressive pitch that just makes you go like, ugh.
Ugh,
And that
yeah.
was an immediate full body no, right?
Yeah.
But it was my body and my brain. My conscious brain was like, this is bad. I don't like it. And it's not effective. So there's no reason to even do it. So my brain and my body were totally on the same page. We're like, hard no, thank you, goodbye. Thank you, next. Then she showed like her version of doing it, which my brain was like, oh, this sounds good. This seems to be very effective. It's not pushy, it's not salesy, it's something that I can get behind. Intellectually, totally good. Brain, check. Body, not so much. Every time I went to, it was very easy. She gave us scripts. Every time I went to do like a copy paste and put it in somebody's thing, what happened for me was I started getting super exhausted. I would go and I would just get so tired. And what I have learned through my journey with interoception is that when I get exhausted out of nowhere, where the thinking about doing something is making me tired, that is my personal body's cue that I'm out of alignment. It took me years to learn that because I also have a chronic illness and I have fatigue syndrome. And I had to learn the difference between fatigue from a health condition versus fatigue from misalignment. And the difference was I tried to do the DMs for 3 days in a row. Every time I'd go to do it, I'd get exhausted, like I need to take a nap. And then if I stepped away from it, I'd start to feel better. Versus if it's a health thing, it doesn't come and go like that. So I started to learn the differences, right? When I had resistance, growing pains in the other days of the challenge, I didn't feel tired. I just felt nervous, right? I just felt a little antsy about it. When I went to do the DMs, I got exhausted. So that was after 3 days, I was like, all right, I experimented with this enough. This is a sign that this is just not for me. And then that allowed me to go and say, okay, what are my values? What are my goals? And my value-driven goal was to build a business that doesn't burn me out. And I thought, even if I was guaranteed to make X amount of money out of doing 10 DMs per day, is that the kind of sustainable business I want to build? And the answer was, even if I made $1 million this year, I don't know that this is that's not going to be a sustainable business that doesn't burn me out. So going back to my values-driven goal allowed me to say, okay, now I can get my brain aligned with my body to say, yes, this is not right for us. So I just never sent a single DM because I knew with confidence that that's just not the path for me. And then I, got out of that challenge and I found a different way to market my business that feels more in alignment, like doing podcasts or articles or different things where I really enjoy the process and it brings me energy rather than drains me. So that's just an example to illustrate my difference between a health condition versus misalignment and the difference between resistance and misalignment. Like the resistance was just like, I got nervous about it, I had a little butterflies in my stomach, I got antsy versus I got exhausted. Now, everybody is different and everybody's different. So it's one of those things that my cue is not going to be your cue. And what you need to do is to start noticing the patterns and seeing, just like I experimented with it. It was like I tried it for 3 days and every time I'd get tired, when I walked away, I felt better. That was my experiment with it. And then I knew that it was not right for me. But now I can move on with complete confidence of what's right for me and what's not, because everybody's different. If somebody else wants to do this, it has to start with noticing. Just start noticing, oh, when I did this thing that I really enjoyed and was really good for me, this is how my body felt. And when I end up doing that thing that ended up not being a great choice for me, how did my body feel? Starting to just notice things and noticing the patterns. And then lean in with your curiosity, you know? You want to start to see the difference and then ask yourself, I wonder why I got so tired every time I went to send a DM. I wonder why I start feeling better 20 minutes later when I walked away from it. If I just start asking myself these questions, I'll start seeing the patterns and then learn the language of my body. Now I know after all these years that when I get tired, that's a sign, but it'll be different for everybody else. I have a client, she says for her, her chest gets a little tight when it's not right for her. And then she feels like a heart opening when it is right for her. And for her, it's all in the chest. For me, it's more energetic. So everybody's got different things.
Dread to me feels like misalignment. And then, like you said, like if I step away from it, I start to feel better. But then if it is in alignment, I start to feel like, I feel like excited and I get hyper.
And it doesn't mean that it's not going to be scary. Like there are going to be things that you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, but that's just because we're scared versus because it's not good for us, right? And there's also like, you know, those nerves where you're like, I don't want to do this, but a part of me does want to do this, right? That's kind of like the push and pull of when you're just scared to do the thing, but you know it's good for you. That's the growing pains versus not a single cell in my body wants to do this.
Nope. Hard pass.
Hard no. Yeah. And we have a tendency to really dismiss our body's intuition and only take account of what our brain and our intellect thinks. And the healthiest, happiest, most confident people have an ability to kind of connect the mind and body and work as a cohesive system rather than fighting one part of yourself versus the other.
So, like, what does confidence feel like when it's actually integrated, not just something we're trying to convince ourselves of?
Think about how you feel and how you behave when you are your best self of sorts, right? When you're doing the thing that brings you the most joy, when you feel the most alive, that version of yourself exists. Everybody has it, even if it's something really small, right? It could be, oh, this is just how I feel when I'm on my morning walks. It could be, this is how I feel with my loved one. It could be, this is how I feel when I'm doing my creative pursuit or when I'm doing something I'm really good at. Like, there's different versions of that. But everybody's got something in their life, even if it's this very short moment that makes them feel the most alive, the most themselves. And the idea of integrating all of these aspects of confidence together is that we start to inhabit that feeling and that behavior more and more of our day and more often. So we get to kind of live in that best self because that best self usually is very confident, very present, very connected, either to other people or to whatever it is that's kind of giving you that life source. You know, whether it's creativity or whether it's nature, whatever it is, we're very connected and we are fully ourselves without self-consciousness.
Now, for those of us listening who don't feel confident right now, where's one place that we can start?
Once again, if you are somebody who's dealing with a lot of anxiety and a lot of nervous system stuff, we have to deal with that first. And that's, again, go to that guide, lots of tips, lots of explanations about the neuroscience of how you can befriend your brain a little bit more and work with your body instead of against it. But once we get past the nervous system step, the best exercise I can give you that's really simple is every day, just tell yourself, blank went well today because I am what? It can be something teeny tiny, right? It's like the talk with my mom went well today because I am a good listener. The podcast went well today because I am a good speaker. I don't know. You can do whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it could be large or small and try to find a minimum of one, but up to three per day and just start a list. So it's different than an affirmation and it's different than a gratitude list. It does make your brain notice the things that are going well, which again, focusing its attention on the positive helps you be more confident. But also it helps show your brain that it's not just something that happened by mistake or a fluke or something that's outside of yourself. The thing that went well happened because you have intrinsically certain qualities or certain things about who you are that made something go well. And that really increases confidence in general. So once you decide what you want to be more confident about more specifically, you can start gearing that kind of proof towards that. But if you're just wanting to be more confident in general, try this exercise of this went well today because I am. And there's a big tendency when I give this exercise to people to start to because I did blank. Like it starts to be because I did or because this happened. No, the whole key is because I am. Because we're trying to find what are the qualities that I genuinely inhibit that I just dismiss and I don't give as much stock to, but those are the things that are going to help me build my confidence.
And are we doing these three examples all at one time throughout the day?
Whatever you'd like. You can do it at the end of the day as like a little journal. You can put it in a notes app and just put it down as the day goes. But so it has two really great effects. A, it helps your confidence because it shows your brain proof of where you made something good happen because of who you are, right? Something that can't be taken away from you. But also it like gears your brain to start looking for the good things because it knows that at the end of the day, it needs to come up with three things.
Right.
And so it'll be looking for it because it needs to complete the assignment. And so we start to train our brain to look for the things that went well. And that helps sort of build that confidence to start. So that's like a very, very basic, easy, only takes you like 2 minutes exercise to do, especially if you're not trying to build your confidence muscle on a very specific thing. Like you are trying to build your confidence muscle on your, audiobook narration and the animation. If you don't have something that specific, you're just somebody who wants to feel more confident in general, this is a good place to start. That and the nervous system regulation.
Lilach, this has been such an amazing conversation. If there was one truth you hope listeners take away about confidence and self-trust, what would it be?
I would say confidence is a muscle. It needs practice, but it's achievable for anybody. And the key is that it needs self-compassion to grow. We cannot grow our confidence while simultaneously beating ourselves up and tearing ourselves down. That takes us back into survival mode because your brain can't tell the difference between external threats and internal threats, meaning when you are verbally kicking yourself, that registers in your brain as somebody else attacking you. So you want to think about when you're hard on yourself, when you're being really critical of yourself, the visual that I like to give my clients is like, imagine that your brain is seeing that as somebody else coming at you with a knife.
My God.
So,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
and that just shuts us down, goes right into survival mode. We can't build confidence when that's happening because anxiety and confidence are different sides of the seesaw. So we have to get out of that anxious survival mode. And so the only way to cultivate it is to give ourselves a lot of self-compassion, to make sure that we give ourselves the space and the compassion to learn and grow, and small failures and small moments of training that muscle and knowing that in training we go back and forth and learning is not linear, right? So that's something that we didn't really touch on as much, but self-compassion is a huge, huge, huge key component of building your confidence. And just remembering that it's something that you need to train and anybody can do it.
So basically, stop coming after myself with the knife of, you suck.
Yep, a little bit. And then it's very important to not be mad at yourself for saying you suck, because then you'll beat yourself up for beating yourself up. This is a good exercise for people. If you have a hard time stopping to beat yourself up, give compassion to your critical self, meaning think about, it really sucks to be annoyed with or mad at somebody that you love and you care about. It's not a good feeling. The critical side of you, the one that's beating yourself up, they don't like it either, right? That doesn't feel good for them. So give them compassion. Be like, I know it really sucks to be so annoyed with somebody that you care about. It's a shitty feeling. Like, let's acknowledge that sucks. It's a very common thing that happens. And can we be kinder to ourselves? Can we give ourselves what we need? Which is what Kristen Neff, who's the pioneer of self-compassion, she called it a self-compassion break, what I just did. So let me just break it down for you. And it's in the guide, which is you acknowledge what's happening. So acknowledge the suffering, as in being mad at somebody that you love. That sucks. That's a really shitty feeling, right? Just acknowledging. Then common humanity of like, everybody feels that way at some point or another, and it's just a natural part of life. Suffering, backslide, setbacks, they're just a natural part of life. It's how we learn, it's how we grow. And can we be kind to ourselves? Can we give ourselves what we actually need in this moment in order to do what we need to do?
Oh, wow. So empowering. Lilach, again, thank you so much for being here and just sharing your wisdom and your brilliance with us. Again, this was such an expansive conversation that I know so many people are going to walk away with such valuable insight. Where can people find you if you'd like to be found?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, and I think you'll put the link in the show notes. Lilach Mendelovich, it's a long Czech name, and or on my website, which is speak.lilachcoaching.com.
Well, Lilach, do you feel complete?
Yeah, do you? Do you have any other burning questions?
We'll save that for the next show.
We'll do a round 2.
Yeah.
So, Seekers, one of my biggest takeaways from this conversation was realizing that confidence isn't something we wait to feel. It's something we build through evidence, self-trust, and learning to work with ourselves rather than against ourselves. But y'all, what happens when what we've been calling confidence isn't confidence at all? Next week, we continue our exploration of self-worth and confidence through the energetic lens with Super Kate, exploring the difference between regulated confidence and performative confidence, why so many of us mistake adrenaline for self-trust, and how nervous system regulation changes the way we show up in the world. I'm Julienne Irons, and this is Perspective Shifts for Healing with the Hanged Woman. If this episode inspired you, please like, share, and follow so we can keep the conversation going. Until next time, hang in there, Seeker. And remember, perspective is power.